Welcome to the Open to Hope Show. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Horsley, with my daughter and co-host.
Dr. Heidi Horsley.
Well, Heidi, we are going to have a show on a topic I know that is dear to your heart and passionate about, and that's on sibling loss. And that is sibling loss, the loss of a lifetime. So Heidi, we've got a couple of guests like you who have lost siblings and are really doing some wonderful things in the field. So would you like to introduce them?
I'd love to, Mom. And as everybody knows, my brother died when he was 17 years old. At the time I was 20, he and my cousin died in a car accident together. And these two guests today, I've been doing deep dives into them. And they've been on, you can get them, you can Google them. They're all over the media, they're all over the internet, but they're talking so much about building awareness for sibling loss because when their brothers died, there wasn't enough out there. There still isn't enough out there. So I love the voices and the lives that they're touching. And so let me introduce them, Mom. Lynn Shattuck and Alyson Shelton are both bereaved siblings, as I've said. Their brothers were in their 20s when they died. Lynn has been publishing essays on sibling loss for more than a decade and was a columnist at Elephant Journal for 10 years. Alyson is also a writer and has published widely at outlets including the New York Times. Alyson hosts the weekly Instagram live series, Where I'm From. Lynn and Alyson are co-authors of an essay collection entitled The Loss of a Lifetime, Advice from Grieving Siblings on Loss, Love, and Hope. Welcome to our podcast, Lynn and Alyson.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
So I know our audience loves stories. So I know they're going to want to hear about your brothers and how long it's been, how they passed away, and then getting into how you guys have dealt with it and how you suggest that others do. I wondered if you'd like to get started, Lynn, and tell us a little bit of your story.
Sure. So in 1999, my younger brother, who was my only sibling, died from drugs and alcohol. And he was 21 at the time. I was 24. And it was like kind of an explosion throughout my life and my family's life. And I had been an adult kind of living on my own at that point and ended up going back to my childhood home and kind of trying to hold each other up, my parents and I. And pretty quickly started hearing the things that a lot of siblings say, at my brother's memorial service, people just kept coming up and saying, be strong for your parents, let your parents know I'm sorry. Almost as if like they had this invisible script that they were reading from. It was just over and over again. And from there, I was feeling like, why isn't this like something that people are seeing when it feels like it's completely altered the course of my life and my family's life forever? So this was before Google, but I, searched for books on sibling loss, and there was nothing. There was like one out of print book. And so that really became kind of like a second wound. And, there was like the loss of my brother, the loss of our family as we'd known it. And then there was the fact that it, like what I was experiencing wasn't really seen or acknowledged. That was my experience with early on.
And how about you, Alyson?
My brother Michael died when I was 10 and he was 25. He died in a hiking accident. He fell off a cliff, which is something I've talked about, how people quickly made that a joke and would, it's really strange. I think we can all relate to this experience of you end up comforting people who are supposed to be comforting you about your grief. You end up telling them, oh, it's fine, it's okay. I did a lot of that. I had 3 older brothers, and as well as Michael, and we didn't really talk about it that much. It was 1984. We had a big family. There was a lot of conversation about you have other brothers, you have more family. They were my half brothers, which wasn't something I was particularly aware of. When I was born, they all lived there and they lived there my whole life and they were my brothers, but it was something that became part of the conversation. Well, they're just your half brothers.
Wow.
Ah,
But they were the only brothers I ever knew. So, and Michael and I were close. He was someone who protected me in a very chaotic situation and who made me laugh and sat with me and took me seriously. And when he died, I I didn't feel like there was space to be sad for very long, like a day. I mean, I distinctly remember after his memorial, I stayed with my cousins, and my cousin was very frustrated with me because I was still sad, and she wanted to sneak out and go meet a boy, and I was sad. My brother had just died. We just said goodbye to him, and she was like, "Ugh, get over it."
mhm.
Mhm.
And I quickly learned there wasn't a lot of space for grief.
One of the commonalities I'm hearing, Heidi, and with you too, is sudden death.
Yeah.
Well, I am identifying with so much here that it's hard for me to even be quiet because from both of Lynn and Alyson, it's like, yes, I feel so heard and so acknowledged and so normalized when I hear other siblings speak.
Yeah.
Because I mean, what Lynn said about everybody focusing on being strong for your parents and also saying, how are your parents doing? You know,
Yeah.
it's like Alyson said, you don't even feel like you have the right to your grief. And all of a sudden you have to comfort everybody else. And then the whole idea of half siblings and for some reason that made it less significant. My daughter's adopted and she's extremely close to her brother and they are siblings.
Right.
So, I mean, you know, it's like we are so low in the totem pole. I mean, everybody else's grief trumps our own that sometimes we wonder, are we allowed to grieve? Should we be grieving? Should we be keeping it to ourselves? Is this significant? And one more thing I want to say, because, you know, I could get on a soapbox. Most of us will spend 80 to 100% of our lifetimes with our brothers and sisters. For the
Yeah.
three of us, our brothers weren't around for a huge, significant portion of our lives and won't be. So, I mean, this is such a big loss. That's what I'm going to say here.
Mhm. You know, what I am interested about is your ages,
Hmm.
because, you know, your brothers died when you were much younger, but they still impact your life. And I think that's a huge message
Yeah.
for people
Mm-hmm.
to hear out there. It's not just, okay, you know, it happened. Heidi's brother died 41 years ago, you know,
Mm-hmm.
Mine died
and
40
it's
years ago,
still,
Heidi.
yeah, it's still important. It still impacts, it still changes your life. Let's talk about some of the ways from all of you, including you, Heidi. How has it changed your life?
I think that's such an important question because I, for so long, just denied or felt the need to deny that it was affecting my life at all. And I still, I still am in some, like, there's still tension there. I still find myself feeling like I need to qualify it sometimes. Like, I understand he died 40 years ago. I should be over it. But the reality is that I wish he were here.
Right.
It doesn't, that doesn't go away. I wish that he could be an uncle to my sons. I wish that we could joke around that he could see how the Dodgers just won. He would, I mean, there's no way I could watch that series and not think of him. And, you know, one of my other brothers and I texted about it. Like, he's present and I still feel like I have a relationship with him, but I do wish he were here.
Yeah, I like this, Alyson. It's like you said, because you go through different milestones. We go through
Yeah.
different milestones in our lives, and our brothers aren't by our sides. They don't know, they won't ever know my children. I mean, my brother wasn't at my wedding. You know, my brother wasn't at my graduation. There's all these milestones we keep going through. Even at family reunions, our whole family will never be there because our brothers aren't there. I mean, so it's interesting how over the life course it continues to impact us. What are your thoughts about this, Lynn?
Yeah, similarly, I've been surprised by kind of just how long it lasts. I mean, it sounds kind of like a no-brainer, but it really is the loss of a lifetime. It's the loss of, you know, the person that held my past with me, my childhood. And throughout my life, I do the same as Alyson said, I miss Will. And particularly when my dad was sick and died 5 years ago, it was very like it was his absence, my brother's absence was like a presence in the room with us. It felt like he should be here with me.
Kind of
Um,
fascinating when people say,
mm,
oh, when your dad dies, oh, he's joined your son now or your brother. It's
mhm,
like, oh, we're
mhm.
supposed to say kumbaya. Yeah.
Right. Like they're just frolicking through the clouds or whatever. Yeah.
My father died 4 years ago, so my heart goes out to you about
Mm,
that too. How when we have losses after, it also is just it brings back the loss of our brothers in a different way, in a powerful way sometimes. And the fact, like you said, that they're not with us to support us with the other losses that we're going to deal with in our lifetime.
How has the loss of your brother enriched your life?
For me, absolutely. And strangely, I felt that to some degree, even early on. Maybe that was a survival mechanism that I needed to feel like something positive would come out of this horrible thing that happened. But as time has gone on, it's been 25 years. And um, for instance, my friendship with Alyson, I've been reflecting on that, and we never would have met, I don't think. She lives in LA, I live in Maine. We're both writers, we're the same age. But I doubt that we would have met otherwise. And, while for a long time after my brother died, I would play this game like, would you trade that? Would you trade that? Would you trade that back, to have your brother back? And at some point, I guess I just realized like that's not how it works. We don't get to trade back. And so here's the loss and here's the gift, and you try to hold them both.
And Alyson, what are your thoughts on this?
I'm trying not to cry because that was really sweet. And I
Mm.
agree with what Lynn said, and I hadn't really ever framed it that way, to be honest. I think I'm less afraid of death in general. There's been a lot of death in my life, it's not just my brother. And I think with trauma of any kind, we can either choose to live with it, to acknowledge it and feel grateful for each day that we have with the people we love, or we can deny it. And I guess I've chosen over time to continue to accept that this is my life. And yeah, I probably would have chosen a different one if given the option back then. But I have a wonderful life now, and I'm grateful for it every day. And I think I think death can give you a certain appreciation.
There's been some research on post-traumatic growth. You want to talk a little bit about some of the ways that people grow?
Dr. Calhoun and Dr. Tedeschi.
Tedeschi.
Yeah, and we've interviewed them on a podcast, and it's like you said, Alyson, y'all know what in the ways that we change and grow because we've done that.
Yeah.
Like you said, Alyson, you appreciate life to a certain extent and relationships more and don't take them for granted as much. And they also found that sometimes people are more spiritual. They're not afraid of adversity. They're not afraid to run towards people that have had great adversity or loss to help them because we've been there. So I think on a certain level, we can now empathize on a whole new level. And so I think in some ways we do grow and we can handle the real hard things in life going forward that are going to come our way. So.
Well, I'm certainly impressed with you ladies and all that you do to help people with sibling loss and recognize it. Because Heidi got started with the podcast because I was doing a podcast for bereaved parents for the Compassionate Friends. They asked me if I would do an early way back, and Voice America, you did pay for play. And Heidi said, "Oh, Mom, you're not talking about sibling loss." And I said, "Well, I haven't lost a sibling. At that time I had not, but I've lost two since then. But I said, I haven't lost a sibling. You come on the show if you want to
Be
talk."
careful what you wish for, because Alyson and Lynn, you already know this. So, I know Lynn just wrote something for Compassionate Friends, an article, but it's all about our parents. And I get that because they've had a child die and it's been horrific. It's been horrible. It's been hard, as it has been for us too. So hearing my mom on the show interviewing all these people was really great. But I was like, once again, the sibling loss voice isn't being heard. We're being unacknowledged, invisible. So yeah, she did say to me, well, then come on and be the voice. I was like, okay, be careful what I wish for. But now,
You did
but
think
now I
about it
get
for a little while.
I did think about it for a little while, but now I get to meet people like Lynn and Alyson that are out there also normalizing our losses and building awareness and connecting with other siblings in big ways.
Absolutely. So Lynn, do you want to tell us the people can find you online and anything that you want, any information that you want to give people?
Sure. The Alyson and I, along with our partner Molly, created a website called lossofalifetime.com. The goal is kind of to really rebrand sibling loss from something that is invisible and unacknowledged to say like this matters. This is a big deal.
We're also on Instagram at Loss of a Lifetime. And I have a website, Alyson Shelton, ALYSONYSHELTON.com, and you can find links to Loss of a Lifetime and where I'm from and all sorts of things. And we do have a sibling loss book club where we read a book and the author joins us, and it's just been wonderful so far. It's amazing to me how Heidi, I feel the same way about you now. Like there is this sort of bond very quickly that forms with other siblings. And I think Lynn and Molly Folks, who I don't know if you all know Margot, I assume that you
We've
do.
had her, yes, we've
Okay.
had her on
Yeah.
the podcast, her mother, yeah.
Yeah. So Margot connected us with Molly, and the three of us, Lynn, Molly, and I were having conversations about what we experienced, and we realized, oh, we want to include more people. We can't just individually speak with every sibling. But so the website has an in-memory section, details about the book club, details about the anthology that we are working on publishing that has many voices of many siblings. And we're so proud of it. And reading all of those essays has been a deeply moving experience for me.
So it's called The Loss of a Lifetime, Advice from Grieving Siblings on Loss, Love, and Hope.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys for being on the show today. You're awesome and very impressive ladies. And I know a lot of siblings are going to resonate with what you're saying and find hope from hearing you and seeing you, that they can get through it and that, they will go on to live their life and can remember their loved one. They don't have to give them up. It's not an end.
Yeah.
Do you want to give us
And
one piece of advice for people who have lost a sibling? Alyson, do you want to start?
I would say their name. That has been a really powerful thing for me. I realized I was saying my brother a lot and I wasn't saying Michael. And when I first started saying his name, I would cry every time because I would feel his presence. When I say Michael, I feel him. And I also encourage people to ask their names. Like, Heidi, what was your brother's name? You said it, but I forgot. Scott. Oh, yes, because you just said it. Okay. It's just, I think that is such a small thing, but it's changed. It's changed me.
And how about you, Lynn?
I guess I would say, and this comes from my own experience, but also from reading the essays from the book that we've collected, is that the pain doesn't necessarily get smaller with time, but that we learn to live with it and the space around it gets bigger. Yeah.
And Lynn, what's your brother's name?
Will,
that's right. I think that there is hope. I think that there is hope in the future. And I don't think we ever get over our brothers. We learn to live without them on the earth. We don't want to get over them. I am who I am because Scott was in my life.
Right.
So, I want to carry him forward in a new and different way, which is what I've done.
Well, thank you all for being on today. And we want to thank everybody for joining us on this show today. And we want to remind you that if you've lost hope, please lean on ours until you find your own, and God bless.
I'm Dr. Heidi Horsley. You have been listening to Open to Hope, the podcast. You can follow Open to Hope on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. To learn more, visit us at opentohope.com and go to Apple Podcasts to subscribe.
I'm Dr. Gloria Horsley. Join us again next week for another Open to Hope conversation, where we invite you to lean on our hope until you find your own.